Sanbanani Dumelang, and welcome to the Get Involved and Level Up podcast, proudly brought to you by Services SETA. Now, we want to ensure that you develop yourself and grow into a better person and become a part of the sector that's really building the future. Now, if you have missed any of our episodes, my name is Valerie Makatlaneng, joining you for this session. And of course, if you've missed the previous ones, it's very important that you go back, watch all of those, and of course, get all the necessary nuggets that you need from all of that. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. We're going to be unpacking how the chambers within Services SETA work. Now, I'm joined by Nomfezeko Vendle. She is, of course, senior manager when it comes to, of course, the chambers and Qualifications Management. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us. Welcome to the Level Up podcast.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about your title, right? When I say senior manager for chambers and Qualifications Management, what does that mean? It sounds like a very stressful job.
Yes, it does sound like a very stressful job, but all in all, it's not stressful at all when you're doing something that you love. Chambers and Qualifications Management, it's about the industries. When we say chambers, I think it's just a fancy word that we use within the skills development arena to say chambers, but if you were to dig deeper and ask us what are chambers, chambers is about the industries. Within the space of the Services SETA alone, we have got about 68 industries that we are servicing. And then those 68 industries are clustered into what we call subsectors. We have got 16 subsectors. And then the subsectors themselves are further clustered into then what we call chambers. And then we've got 6 chambers. Those are the chambers of the Services SETA.
So we start from, the industries, then we group those into subclusters or subsectors. Then that in itself is also grouped into chambers. Which is what we're touching base on today. Okay, are you able to give me just a little bit of a summary of what these 6 chambers are?
Okay, these 6 chambers, I think, again, going back to the actual industries, the 68 industries, the way we actually grouped them is in such a way that those industries are related industries. If, for instance, you're talking about personal care being one of the 6 chambers, you will find industries like your hair care, like your beauty, your funeral sector, as well as your fashion. I know when they talk within that space of the personal care, they say we take care of you as personal from while you are still alive, and then we take care of you even after death. That's why you'll have your hair care, your beauty, as well as funeral and fashion, because you need to look presentable as a person. So that's personal care. But there's also marketing and communications. There's also management and business services. There is also real estate and related services. There is also, which other chamber did I leave out? There's 6 of them. Yes, so those are the chambers that we have.
Fantastic. And I mean, if we look at, the specific mandate and functions of, the chambers, what would you say that is?
Yes, it is very important that we actually emphasize that. I'm glad you asked that question, because when it comes to the industries, as the SETA, we're about skills development. Now, being the SETA and also being about skills development, we would not be able to service the industries without the industries. We are saying is for the industry, by the industry. The industries themselves must inform us as to what is it that they want in terms of skills needs. So as a result, the chambers, we actually call them chamber operations. So the chamber operations will then engage with the various industries, those 68 industries, grouped into chambers. So they engage with them to actually identify the training needs. Once they have done that, in certain instances, you find that as they identify those training needs, there are no qualifications to then address those training needs that have been identified. Then the chambers again are then are the ones that inform the Services SETA to say, Services SETA, this particular industry has indicated this kind of training need, and we do not have qualifications. So then the qualifications will then be developed also based on what the industry needs. And if there are no qualifications, then we start with the development of qualifications. But further to that, once the qualifications are developed, are in place, you can have the qualifications, but if you don't have the mechanisms to actually implement the training against those qualifications, there's really nothing much you can do. So it is again a responsibility of the chambers to make sure that there are accredited training providers. As we indicated right from the beginning, that they are very linked to the industries. So they must take those qualifications that would have been developed back to the industry to say, industry, these are the qualifications that have been developed in your space. Now we need providers, we need schools. If I were to put it in a layman's term, we need schools that can be able to then offer those qualifications. So the various industries or various companies and entities must then apply for accreditation. So the chamber operations will go and mobilize those companies that are eligible to become training providers. But over and above that, once the training providers are in place, again, in the implementation of the training, the organization, being the Services SETA, will be saying, okay, we have got funding that we want to spend in terms of training. The chambers must then inform that what must be advertised in terms of the needs in alignment with the industry, because they would have been informed by the industry. So what they would then do, if, say, for instance, you see an advert that goes on the website of the Services SETA, that advert would have been informed by what the industry needs. And those industry needs would have been obtained by the chambers. So that what you see advertised is to address the need that has been identified by the chambers from the sector.
Okay, I get it. I think that was the easiest and most perfect explanation that you could give to it. That makes sense. Now I'm thinking, okay, with how you've explained it, what if the sector doesn't come back to you? What if the sector doesn't come and say, okay, Ms. Vendle, this is what's missing, this is what's not there, and you find yourself lacking in those departments where they may be falling behind. In that regard, how is Chambers trying to fill the gap to ensure that you're also staying up to date and not just relying on, all these industries to come and say, hey, we need help here?
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. From the 68 industries that we have, not all of them are active.
Yeah.
So it is the duty of the chambers to then make sure that, okay, over and above those that we see running, implementing training, what about those that there is nothing that is happening, is quiet? They must then engage. We've got what we call industry directed engagements, where we then initiate the engagements, where we invite the industries to say, we are sharing information. We want you to understand what is skills development. How can you benefit from skills development? If there are no qualifications in your space, how can you go about developing qualifications? How can you go about getting involved in skills development? So it is the duty and the responsibility of the chambers to make sure that each and every one of the industries that we have, as much as they might not be as active as others, they must probe and bring them and engage them and bring them on board so that they can be able to participate in skills development.
Amazing. And when it comes to priorities of, which sectors or industries that you kind of are pushing or assisting more, is there a priorities list perhaps of who's at the top, or is it based off, the activity of the industry? Valerie, the structure even of the personnel that work within the chambers. Like I indicated, there's 6 chambers. Each of those chambers has got a chamber manager. And under them, there's senior officers. Each and every one of them, they advocate for their chambers. So as a result, you end up not... You will be in trouble if you were to say this one is more of a priority than this one. We prioritize in the sense that also maybe in alignment with what is needed by the country. For example, you might find that a hairdresser being the one, now there's 2 artisanal qualifications that we have in our space. You might see that one is a bit prioritized, but not necessarily because it's a special industry or anything, but maybe because there is a need that has been highlighted also from the side of government to say, let us also focus on artisans as the year or the decade of artisans.
But other than that, the chamber managers and the senior officers that are working in those chambers, they make sure that they advocate for skills development to be implemented across the board, and make sure that, because at the end of it all, we're saying we've got a chamber called Cleaning and Hiring Sector. One could think, no, there's no need maybe for training in cleaning. There's definitely a need for training in cleaning.
100%.
That's what skills development came up with, to say whether you are cleaning the floors or you are sitting in some boardroom, you must be proud of what you are doing. As a result, we have qualifications in the space of cleaning. So as a result, the chamber manager that is responsible for that space will be telling you that cleaning at height is actually very critical, because at the end of it all, you must clean.
Yeah.
COVID-19 taught us that actually cleaning is very important. Hygiene and cleaning is very important.
Yeah.
So there's no industry that is not important when it comes to the space of
And
the
I think
services
it's so
sector.
important that you mentioned that, because oftentimes we wait for tragedies. We wait for body COVID to come through for us to
That's true.
prioritize, basic
That's
things
true.
of cleaning. So essentially, it says that there's always so much more you can learn about any industry. It's just
Definitely.
whether or not you're willing to tap in and get involved within that
Definitely.
industry. And I think it's amazing that you push for this. How do the chambers ensure that they are aligned with the industry needs? So is it based off surveys or the rules and regulations that you follow? How are you ensuring you're meeting all the marks that you're supposed to?
Okay, over and above the stakeholder engagements that we have, I said we engage for various things. One of those being just to actually share information. But over and above that, chambers in their nature, they are part of the governance of the organization, the SETA. They are part of the governance structures, to a point that we have got what we call chamber committees. So all the 6 chambers have got chamber committees. So those chamber committees act as advisory bodies to the accounting authority. The organization has the body that is responsible, being the accounting authority. Now, the chambers have got some delegated functions that are coming from the accounting authority, and they then inform or advise the accounting authority of the training needs, because we always call them, they are the link between the Services SETA and the industry at large. The way those chamber committees are formed in terms of the composition, they are representing your labor, they are representing a business, organized business, that is your business associations, they are representing professional bodies, they are even representing government departments. If you see, you were to walk into any of our chambers, you'll find that the chamber committee is made up of those structures. We are in the current era that we are in, we are also introducing the seat for youth, so that the youth, the needs in terms of skills development for the youth can have a voice within the chambers as well. We are also introducing a seat for people living with disabilities, so that we can also have focus on that. Not that in the past, as we are implementing skills development within the Services SETA, we're not looking at those. The transformational imperatives are always at a part of our priorities. But we are now going further to say, let us then have those 2 seats added onto the chamber committees as well. So that's one of many ways on how we then obtain the skills development needs of the various sectors that we have.
I love that so much. And as the youth, I think we always say that we don't feel represented. And, conversations where big decisions are being made, we're not really a part of those. But I like that, this is a next step of transformation into saying we actually need the voice of these people, because we are catering to them. So I think that's so important. When it comes to the qualifications that you do review, I want to know how you go about that process and ensuring that, 1, it's done right, 2, it's meticulous and credible, and 3, that when the chambers are reviewing all of these, there's due diligence in ensuring that you're doing that.
No, definitely. That is why the department that I'm responsible for is called Chambers and Qualifications Management. Is such that these 2 functions, they come close together, because they work closely. I've spoken about chambers. I'm not going to talk much about qualifications development as a unit, but I'll touch on the process as you have asked. Now, it will start with the industry. I said is by the industry for the industry.
Right.
It will start with the industry indicating to the Services SETA through the chambers that there is a need for a particular qualification. Now, when that need has been identified, normally it would come through an organized body like an industry association or union or professional body or even government department. The chamber operations, they don't just take their word for it. They will go a step further to say, let us call on a meeting for all the stakeholders in that particular industry, so that we can then confirm that indeed there is a need and there is a market for this particular qualification. That meeting will then sit, and then we call that meeting consultation session. We'll have that consultation session. Once we have that and it is confirmed that indeed there is a need for this qualification, we need to make sure that there are industry bodies, that professional bodies, business associations are represented and all that. Once that has been confirmed, we then work with our partner being the QCTO,
Right.
in terms of because they are the custodian of all our occupational qualifications.
Right.
We then work with the QCTO, submit an application to the QCTO to say, this particular industry has identified that there is a need for a qualification against this particular skill. We then submit that application to the QCTO. Once it is submitted, if the QCTO on their side will do their own checks to say, because what we are trying to guard against also, if there is a qualification that is already in place, there must be no duplicates, because we don't develop qualifications for a particular person, but we develop the qualifications for the industry. If there is a qualification already in the industry that addresses that particular need, then even from us as the SETA, we will not submit that application to the QCTO. But if we let it go, it would then mean that we have checked, we have made sure that there is no duplication that is going to be caused by us developing that qualification. We then submit to the QCTO. Then after submitting, the QCTO, they will do their own internal processes. Then they will send us an approval to say, you can go ahead and develop. Then from our side, because we are also, I mentioned the governance earlier on, the accounting authority, the chambers and EXCOs and all that, we will then do our own internal processes after having received that and say to the organization, we then need funding for the development of the particular qualification. Then also what triggers the development of qualifications is a number of things. Right now, as we speak, we are transitioning from what we used to call historically registered qualifications or legacy qualifications or unit standard based qualifications to occupational qualifications. So there is a huge need in all the industries to transition from the historical registered qualifications to occupational qualifications. So in certain instances, we need to realign those historical registered qualifications into occupational qualifications. In certain instances, we have to develop new qualifications because it's now the new industries that have come on board that want to also participate in skills development. Once we then are done with those analyses, we've got the funding that has been approved by the organization, we then start the process. The process will then start with us saying, let us call the same industry that said wanted this qualification. I'll make an example. If there's an industry, a real estate industry, they will say to us they want to develop a particular qualification because there is a law that has been passed that says all the real estate agents must have a particular qualification in order for them to practice. Then we will have to respond to that need. We follow this process. So when we are at a point now where all the approvals by the internal, the accounting authority have been done, we then start the process. We call the real estate industry as an example. So we've now done all the requirements in terms of the approvals within. We then are at a point now where we call that particular industry, in this case, there being the real estate, we call them into a room to say, let us have what we call the scoping meeting.
Okay.
From that scoping meeting, they will then again confirm, they will have to confirm if indeed this qualification is needed and who is going to be the consumer of this qualification, who are the stakeholders, who are the professional bodies, who are the business associations, who are the unions, who are the government departments that will then need this qualification. Once that is confirmed, we also confirm who is going to be the quality partner, who is going to be responsible for this qualification in terms of the implementation. Once all that is confirmed, we then start with the process. From that because in the scoping meeting, we call the entire industry to be in the room. So after that, we then say, okay, you have confirmed everything. Now let us appoint a working group that is going to work on the nitty-gritties of the development of that qualification, together with what we call the QDF, being the Qualifications Development Facilitator. So we will have a facilitator, we'll then have the experts as well. It's a very small group of about 8 people, led by a qualifications development facilitator, someone who is qualified in the development of qualifications process. So that process takes something about 3 months or so in terms of developing that qualification. They will have about 6 sessions where they profile the qualification, they develop the curriculum, they make sure that all the other requirements of a qualification have been developed. Once they are done with that, along that process, this is one thing I want to also confirm, because also emphasize, because also, as I indicated, this process is for the industry, by the industry. Yes, we have reduced now the industry into just a smaller group. That smaller group, every now and then, when they finish a particular section, they then share the document with the rest of the industry, so that the industry can make comments and then check if they are still aligned to that what was required up until the last session. As I indicated, there's about 6 sessions that they will have. Then they will have a final session that is called the final verification. In the final verification, we call the industry again, all of them together with that smaller group that was developing the qualification, to sit around the table. The smaller group, together with their facilitator, they will then present what they have put together. They present, and in the presence of our partner, being the QCTO, to also check if we are aligned and all that. If everything goes well in that verification session, because sometimes it might not go well, the industry might say, no, this is not what we actually we asked you to do. But if everything goes well, we then are at a point where we then, as a SETA, submit to our partner, being the QCTO, to then for them to do their part in terms of checking and verifying that we aligned everything accordingly. If everything on their side, they see that also is aligned accordingly, because even at that point, it can be returned. If we are not aligned with the processes as they have defined, they can send it back to us to say there's a gap here, fix here, maybe there's a international comparability that has not been articulated appropriately, then they will want us to do that. But if everything goes well, they then refer then the qualification to SAQA, being the South African Qualifications Authority, for the qualification to then be registered on the NQF. So if SAQA also is happy with the submission from the QCTO, they will then register the qualification. But if they are not, they will return it back to QCTO. QCTO will return it back to the SETA. The SETA will return it back to the industry. Industry fix your qualification. But that's how, in all those points, that there are checkpoints to make sure that the qualification is aligned appropriately in terms of the requirements by the industry. What is it that what skill they want to address, but also it's in alignment with the requirements of the custodian of qualifications, being the QCTO, and also it's aligned according to the NQF. So that's how we follow
Sure.
the development
Okay,
of the qualifications.
you know what, you're doing a lot in that 3 months, so the duration somewhat makes sense.
Yes.
How often do these get reviewed? Perhaps maybe you're adding a new skill to the qualification, or maybe they're even saying it's being revoked because things are wrong, or whatever it may be. How often do these get checked to see whether or not they
Yes.
need to be fixed?
Each qualification, as it is being registered, is given a duration of 5 years.
Okay.
After 5 years, it will expire.
Right.
It must then be reviewed. But the industry is allowed to actually review even before the end of that 5 years. Let's say, for instance, the qualification, when it was developed, the requirements were in such a way that it is the way it is. But along the way, because these industries evolve, and then they see that now this qualification, it doesn't satisfy the need for the training in this particular industry. They will then identify that there is a need for us to review this qualification. Hence, I was saying earlier on, there's different triggers that can tell us to actually start the development of a qualification. It could be the qualifications expired, now we must then develop new ones, or it could be we are changing the landscape as we are transitioning from the historical registered to occupational. But also it could be the industry is thinking this qualification doesn't satisfy the need anymore, so now we must review. So the unit that is responsible for qualifications development under my department is the one that is monitoring those, checking also the expiry date, when does this qualification expire, and indicate to the chambers to say your particular qualification is actually getting expired on such a date. What is it going to happen? Are you going to review that qualification? Are you going to maybe let it die because there's no need for it anymore? Because there are instances like that. When there's a qualification, you find that that qualification is no more needed by the industry, but instead of just deregistering it, we let it go to the point where it expires, and then we do not review it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And in terms of, let's talk small businesses, perhaps. Maybe those that aren't they aren't part of a formal association. Perhaps they haven't been accredited in any kind of way, but they're still operating as a small business. How do you engage with them as the chambers? Do you perhaps assist them in any kind of way? What sort of relationship do you perhaps have with these?
We have a very good relationship with our industries. As I indicated, I think it starts from within to say, with the 6 departments or units that are within the chambers, to make sure that each and every industry is taken care of. That's why we've got different types of stakeholder engagements. We engage in certain instances for those well-developed industries and companies for submissions of workplace skills plans and annual training reports, for instance. Those are the ones that are paying levies and they are supposed to be claiming back their mandatory grants. But like you are saying, there are those that are not paying levies. They are small. Some of them don't even know that there is something called skills development. The chamber operations, as part of stakeholder engagements, they make sure that they have those industry-focused stakeholder engagements on a yearly basis to actually call on smaller industries to say, now we're focusing on the pet care. You know that pet care is a booming industry.
Huge.
That forms part of the cleaning sector as well. So they are allowed as chamber operations to actually do those focused industry engagements, to zoom into them and share information, because information is there, but it needs someone to then take it to the people. So the chambers are there to take that information to the industries.
You are such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so glad you're able to share this with us. I'm going to be a little bit selfish, and I want to talk about, a part of the industry that I love so much, which is beauty and personal care, I think.
Okay.
I just want to talk a bit about that, just in terms of how the chambers are helping, that sector of the industry uplift our economy as a whole. Because I think, if I think about it, quite a few people would fall under that sector of personal care and beauty and thereof. So how are you guys helping, that specific industry in kind of uplifting our economy?
I'm glad you asked that question, because that's one of the industries where you find mostly it's made up of women, mostly is startups, mostly is people that actually are trying to make ends meet. to make a living out of it. You might find someone just doing nails so that they can put bread on the table. So that's the industry that the Services SETA has been, amongst others, taking care of adequately in making sure that there are qualifications in place. To an extent that the qualifications that we have, normally our qualifications, they would take something like 12 months for training.
Right.
But in the space of beauty, as we were engaging with the industry, we then identified that actually that long 12 months training is not sufficient is not like something that is always needed by everyone.
Right.
If, for instance, you're zooming onto someone who wants to just focus on makeup, we've got a short program for that. Makeup artistry. If you're talking about someone who wants to just zoom in onto manicure and pedicures, the nails, we've got a program for that. Okay. So that's how we are trying our best as the organization to actually make sure that industries like beauty, where we see that that industry together with others like your hairdressing as industries that today, if you give that person a skill, they can be in a position to actually feed their family tomorrow already. Amazing. Because that's how it is. Yeah. It's not labor intense in terms of the equipment that you need, but they need just the startup kits so that they can be able to then be able to an extent that I think over the last few years, we actually broke those historical registered qualifications. We broke it down into short skills programs. That's when those short programs were actually born in terms of the beauty, to say the full qualification, it doesn't help much. Let's break down that short skills, that full qualification into short skills. And we trained, I think, about plus minus 8,000 or so in various short programs of their choice. One would be saying, I want to focus only on facials. One would be saying, I want to focus only on nails. One would be saying, I want a specific skill. So that's how that particular industry we are taking care of, by making sure that there are those short programs. But the way we have actually drafted those programs, they are such that one can actually build up on them. Let's say today you want to start on nails. Tomorrow you want to then add another segment up until you then fill up that qualification. You can even do it like that.
Sure. Nomfezeko Vendle, ladies and gentlemen, she is, of course, the senior manager for Chambers. Yes, of course, for Chambers and, of course, Qualifications Management. She really, really is pushing you to go out there and just gain a skill or two. Who knows? You could use it as a step ladder to get to a point where you are a whole encompassed person who has multiple skills, not just one. Don't box yourself, as I've mentioned earlier. It's such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for your time. Before we let you go, what is one skill that you think most people should have? It doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter what, but that one skill that you think, this is a benefit if you have this skill, regardless of where you're at.
I think communication skill.
Yeah.
That is the most important skill, because it cuts across. Whether you are in beauty, you still have to communicate with your clients. Whether you are in real estate, you still have to communicate with your clients. I think communication, which happens to be part of our skills as well, in the communications and marketing chamber, that's where you find communication. So amazing. Communications to me is the skill.
I have to agree with you. And we are communicating with you right here on the Get Involved and Level Up podcast. Please touch base with us. Let us know your thoughts, your opinions, or if you have any queries, we would love to hear from you. Or you can head over to our website. That's going to be on the screen right now. Thank you so much for your time. When we come back, I told you I'm all about the beauty. We tap into personal care and beauty right here on the Get Involved and Level Up podcast. We're making you part of the sector that's building the future. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the conversation. If you've just joined us, we'd like to warmly welcome you. Now, what you've missed is a brief overview of all the chambers that exist within Services SETA. But today we want to hone in specifically on the beauty sector. Now, my guest today is someone that's both equipped and qualified to give us all this information. Her name is Dr. Tembani Mentor. She joins us today as an ethics director at SASP. Now, SASP has been dribbling me all morning. It is the South African Association for Hair and Skincare Professionals. And she joins us today. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So it's health and skincare,
Health
not
and skincare,
hair.
not hair.
Yeah, no.
That's good. Okay, so let's take it. So it's South African Association for Health and Skincare.
professionals.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about SASP. What is the mission of SASP and some of the work that you guys are doing within your organization?
SASP regulates and supports our skincare and health professionals.
Okay.
Health and skincare is more your beauty therapist, your nail technician, your dermatologist.
Okay.
Think of going to a spa. Those professionals that you find in that setting are the ones that we support.
Okay, cool. And when it comes to, the qualifications of that sector, ordinarily, some people are self-taught, some people didn't really go to school for it, some people say they went to school, and then of course are offering services like this to people. What does it mean to be a qualified professional within that sector?
The beauty industry is very much a skills-based industry.
Yeah.
And skills can be taught in a formal and informal setting. We have a lot of people practicing beauty, practicing skincare, practicing sometimes even your aesthetic side of skincare,
Yeah.
who have not necessarily obtained a formal qualification. This does leave vulnerabilities within the community with from a layperson's point of view or someone seeking a treatment. You don't necessarily walk into a spa and say, show me your qualification, otherwise you're not going to be able to do my nails, or I'm not going to allow you to do my lashes or something like that. So it is a tricky one, which is why SASP has partnered with Services SETA to try and recognize people who do have skills but have not necessarily had the opportunity to obtain a formal qualification, to give them designation so that they are able to practice safely.
And I think you touch on something very important. I mean, Dr. Mentor. I mentioned the doctor because that's very important in what we're talking about because of the sensitivity of some of the stuff that's being done at these establishments. I mean, I think of the rise of IV drips, which is something we briefly spoke about off air. But, everywhere, everyone's getting an IV drip. If you need an energy boost, just get an IV drip. But what's actually in there that's going in your body? And I think as a doctor and someone who is, the ethics director, I think it's important to hear from you just some of the dangers of, going through channels where perhaps someone isn't qualified but is, claiming to be a professional that is able to put all of these things in your body.
So the one thing that I want to say to the public at large is a skincare therapist is not allowed to operate with a needle. If a skincare therapist wants to inject into your skin, let alone inject into a vein, just know that that person is severely out of scope. We want our beauty therapists, our nail technicians, our beauticians to remain within scope and only perform procedures which they're qualified to do. Because the reality is there's an IV bar every second traffic light in Gauteng at the moment. There are people doing IV drips at home, inside of hotel rooms. And I am, like you said, the director of ethics, so I deal with most of the complaints. I'm always astonished when someone says to me, I had a drip done, and I asked them what was in the drip, and the person does not know. And my first question is, how do you allow someone to inject something into your body, and you yourself have not verified the vial, its expiry date? What is it that is being injected into my body? And I'm always shocked that, yes, the therapist is wrong, but so is the consumer, because it's your body. It's your right to know what's being put into your body. And most of the time, people don't care to ask.
Okay, but doctor, if I'm going to get an IV drip and, I ask, okay, what's in this? And they say to me, there's
glow.
No. And, I don't know these medical terms. I'm not going to say, that one sounds dodgy. So how do we, as just the average Joe, how do we know what should be a red flag and what isn't? Because I wouldn't even know if they said, if I didn't know niacinamide was for skin and the doctor said there's niacinamide, it's good for glow, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. You know, I
Yes.
buy into it, but we don't know these terms. We don't know these big things. So what are some of the red flags that you look out for? I like the fact that you mentioned, you know, a skincare professional should not be using a needle for your skin. But I think maybe just give us a couple of these red flags that we should look out for where we can think, okay, no, doc said this is not something I should be going for.
So I think when it comes to the drips, this is a trend. This is a trend I would say started in 2020 around COVID when people were desperate to protect themselves, boost their immune system. And the impression kind of spread that, well, if you put, for example, zinc directly into your blood, this is more effective, better than taking zinc orally, to make an example. So I think that's when the real trend started taking off. And there are different cocktails one can use for energy, for boosting the immune system, for a hangover, to treat hyperpigmentation. But all of these procedures are still medical. Remember that this is an intravenous drug. It's scheduled. Therefore, it has to be prescribed. So I cannot walk around saying, oh, to protect yourself from flu, take all of these antibiotics or take these antivirals. We wait to first become infected and then we treat. But when it comes to the IV drips, because they're easily accessible and it's more a social trend than medically relevant some of the times, we tend to overlook those red flags. So it should only be a doctor or a registered nurse under the supervision of a doctor that is injecting these IV drugs into your system. Each item which is infused into the IV bag should have an indication, what are we treating? Why are we putting this? Some of these drugs have cross reactions. You cannot mix 5-10 drugs into one bag. And of course, the person, which people don't necessarily think of, the person that is performing the procedure on you should be able to handle a complication. What happens if I start the IV line and the person starts to have an allergic reaction? What will I do? Am I qualified to resuscitate the patient? Do I have emergency drugs on hand that I can give to the person? Do I know how to perform CPR? Most of the times it's no. Is it sterile? If you're having your IV drip while your makeup is being done or while your hair is being done, is this really a sterile procedure? Can I trust that the vitamins have not been contaminated with bacteria? So these are the things that we need to ask, and you should always be able to ask for certification or ask for a qualification or look for your practitioner online to make sure they're registered.
And you know, I think we need to normalize that. Like, get there and ask for the qualification, ask for the documentation so that you're able to see what you're putting in the body. Because at the end of the day, it's only going to bite you in the long run. So I do think that this is something you shouldn't feel ashamed of. I think oftentimes you'll feel like, hey, or that I'm sizing them up. Yes, I actually am, because this is something that's extremely important. I mean, you've just mentioned a trend that's been happening within the sector, the beauty sector. And I think with these trends that are continuously evolving, how do you think SASP is keeping up with those and ensuring that, you know, they spot the trend and of course address it as should be?
Our main priority is safety, is competence, and practicing ethically. So just because something is trending, just because there is a demand, just because there's an opportunity for money to be made, does not mean we will align ourselves or endorse harmful practices. Even if people always come to us and say, well, this is being done, just because you can do something does not mean you may do something. So we do pay attention to trends. We do know what the public demands or what the industry demands. However, safe practice is always our priority.
And I mean, you mentioned that it is quite a, I wouldn't say informal sector, but it's quite skills based. When we look at the sector that we're touching base on now. And, you know, within Services SETA, there is RPLs, which is recognition of prior learning. And I think that's specifically very important within this sector because of, you know, the informalness of, or the nature rather, of the work. How has, you know, SASP worked with Services SETA to ensure that they are still giving people some form of accreditation for all the work that they've previously done?
This year, I'm proud to say we had a very successful partnership with Services SETA. something that personally is very close to my heart. We were able to do an RPL project, the recognition of prior learning, in 5 provinces, where we assisted 100 young girls from each of the provinces to get designation in RPL in order to be able to do beauty or beauty therapy in a way that displays competence and professionalism. So we're very grateful to the Services SETA for assisting us in able to pilot this project, and we hope in future that we can assist more girls, because the reality is we all know someone who is doing nails from a back room somewhere, who learns on YouTube or who learns on TikTok, who does not have the economic resources to obtain the formal papers. And these are people who are sitting at home, who are brave, who are innovative, who say, I may not have had the opportunity to go to school, but I'm not going to sit and fold my arms. I am going to work. I am going to sharpen my skills. I am going to put food on the table for my family, for my children. So whenever we have an opportunity to work like this, with Services SETA, to give back to the communities and help men and women, it's always a pleasure.
And why not, right? I think why not kind of uplift everybody as we go up? I don't think it's one of those things where you need to increase or level up by yourself. We should all be doing that together, just so that, you know, we associate ourselves with people that are like-minded. You mentioned 5 provinces that you've traveled to. Within your travels in these 5 provinces, what are some of the skills gap that you noticed as you were traveling around to say, okay, this is, you know, a pot that we can fill. This is something that's lacking in this province. This is something we can address. What are some of those gaps that you noticed?
Not necessarily skills gap. I would say skills and knowledge. I did mention that I deal with the complaints. Sometimes a person's wrongdoing or transgression is simply based on ignorance. They are not aware that they are not allowed to do something, especially when someone is informally trained, because part of training is knowing what not to do.
Right.
So we sometimes find that, yes, a person knows that they know how to do nails, but if someone comes with an ingrown nail, they won't know to not poke in there or not try to aspirate or treat the nail. So I think it's more a knowledge gap in terms of safety. When do I say no? When do I refer to a colleague that's probably better trained or differently trained from me? And then the other gap that we identified is sometimes people have the skill, but not necessarily the workplace or the infrastructure to practice the skills that they've acquired or skills that they've practiced in. So this is something we still need to work hard at, that after we have sort of fine-tuned someone's skills, that they have the actual place to practice from.
And I think that's what I was going to lead into is, you know, the informal salons that we see, where, you know, the people have the skills, they're able to execute, but it's just perhaps, you know, the space in itself, or they don't have the qualification to say, I am recognized. But, you know, when it comes to SASP and Services SETA, that's something that you're taking a step in doing. Are you able to share perhaps a success story that you've experienced when traveling to all these or some of these 5 provinces, just so that we're able to put, you know, a picture to what we're saying in the fact that it is possible? For you to go from informal to actually getting your RPL, to, you know, advancing yourself and learning more and more skills, even outside your own sector. But I just want to talk to you based on your experience of some of the success stories.
Well, I cannot really single out, because for me personally, the experience was overwhelming in terms of seeing the gratitude from the girls. I think when I'm privileged enough to have an education, sometimes we take these things for granted. Then you see someone who has been praying for years for an opportunity like this. They get selected. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of travel time that they put in. And for those learners to reach the exit of the program, for those learners to get their designation and to say you are qualified, I think I underestimated how proud they would be, how happy they would be, because what this does is sets them apart from anyone else, for example, in the community who's saying, oh, well, I also know how to do nails. Oh, well, I also know how to do massage, for example. That they now have the papers to say, I am competent, I belong to a body. We do register the girls within SASP to say I do belong to a regulatory body and I am a professional in my own rights.
Advice for the young girl that's watching this right now that feels like, you know what, I've been doing this for a bit. Like I have, my fair share of experience, but what next? What's the next step? How can I get assistance? How can I, advance myself and develop myself within this sector? How would you advise them to go about it?
I would advise them to reach out to SASP on our website. If they don't have access to that, they can give us a call.
Yeah.
Speak to one of our members. Speak to one of us. I readily give my number out. Whether they want to reach out for RPL or find out about schools, how they can get formal training or how they can be assisted with designation. We're always ready to help. Our role is to support the industry, and we understand that the industry is way larger than our actual members, that there are a lot of participants in this industry. Our goal is that we can all fall under the umbrella of SASP and all make sure that we're practicing in a way that displays good ethics and safety for the people that engage with our industry.
100%. SASP is a body that cares for you, and you can, of course, care for yourself by getting involved. It's really one of those things where, you're doing the work already. Why not formalize it? Why not get all the necessary qualifications? And if you have been doing it before, RPLs exist. So please head over to our website, the Services SETA website, as well as the SASPA website. We will be putting it on the screen for you to engage over there. Before we let you go, I want to know from you. You are in touch with all of these things. What is the hottest makeup trend for this year that you have seen? I'm curious to know. Yes, it has to come from the horse's mouth. You see all the trends.
Makeup trend, I would say. Not a trend, but a lot of people are still trying to figure out their eyebrows.
Eish. Don't zoom in. Do not zoom in. Do not zoom in. How do you feel about the era of tattooed eyebrows then?
Oh, it's long gone. What a throwback to 2016. I hope those who tattooed the 1 centimeter super contour brows, I hope they're able to do laser to remove them.
Yeah.
But a trend that I really like is the pink blush that is being done right under the eye, sort of mid-cheek going out. That's a trend I've been trying to learn.
So we're normalizing blush blindness.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. Just keep going. Keep adding the blush.
Yeah, it makes you look warm and friendly.
Love that.
Yeah.
From the doctor's mouth herself, she has, of course, come through to give us all of these nuggets. Thank you so much for coming through to join us. She is Ethics Director at SASPA. We're going to do it together. South African
Association for Health and Skincare Professionals.
She even finishes my sentences. Dr. Tembani Mentor, thank you so much for coming through to join us. And of course, you heard it from her first. Do not fall for the scams. What you're inputting into your body will last a lifetime. So make sure you ask. Do it. Ask for the qualifications. Ask for the credibility that they are putting the right things into your body, and ensure that you are getting involved in making this a better industry and better sector. Shout out to you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much to SASPA and, of course, to our Dr. Mentor who has joined us today. Become a part of the sector that's building the future. And, of course, the skincare and beauty sector is one of those that you can tap into. If you've been doing it for a while, now you can formalize it. Don't ever say we didn't plug you. Head over to the websites to be able to see all the things that we've spoken about. And for our segment today, Dr. Mentor, thank you so much for coming through to join us.
Thank you, Valerie.
Absolutely. Chambers and industry. The common misconception is that chambers are informal interest groups inside Services SETA with no official role. This is false. Chambers are formal recognized sectoral committees set up to give focused stakeholder advice on skills priorities for specific subsectors. The common misconception is that chambers exist only to host networking events and conferences. This is false. Chambers have an oversight function to inform sector skills planning and recommend occupational qualifications. Another misconception is that the beauty and personal care industry is too informal to be professionalized. This is obviously false. The beauty and personal care chamber is formalizing the industry through recognized qualifications, learnerships, and NQF-aligned training that creates the career opportunities.